haven't we? Oversleeping. A few of those yesterday, I imagine, on New Year's Day. Look, what a season Marcus Rashford is having. But it was a surprise, wasn't it, when we saw him on the bench for the game at Molineux. Everyone wondered what was going on. Then you heard there was a disciplinary issue. We've seen this before with Erik ten Hag. He puts his foot down. Did you like the way he handled it? Yeah, and I thought that they both handled it very well, because I've not read too much or heard too much about Marcus Rashford being late or, very, all that kind of like disciplinary problems. He's never been somebody said that. So I was very surprised at that. But what I was pleased with is that I thought the punishment fit the crime. Yeah. It's not something that he needed to be left out of the whole squad. He put him on the bench to make a point. And Marcus Rashford, a good professional that he is, he's answered. And he's come out and he said, listen, I overslept. And, the manager's happy because he's got the response he wanted. And you're just hoping that doesn't happen again. But at the same time, it's just nice when it all ends up properly, because the manager is trying to instill discipline and culture and stuff. He's had all that problem with Ronaldo, and he's had to deal with that, and I thought he dealt with that pretty well. So I'm really pleased that this is something that's just done, finished, and they got on with it.
I was just thinking, you both played under Mourinho and George Graham, that kind of discipline where no nonsense.
Absolutely.
George Graham, honestly, I was petrified of him. So Tony Adams telling people that I was late all the time. It's like,
I don't believe it for a second.
Absolutely ridiculous. Simply because George Graham, if you're late, that's not happening. You can't do that. So it was literally, I was petrified even when I got there. And then sometimes I get there so early, he was just the only one there, and you sit there like this.
I think that's what you need, though. Go back to Arteta at Arsenal. That discipline, you need to do it as a coach, as a manager. There needs to be a boundary, and that players that have to fit inside that. And it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, that could have been one of the key players on Saturday. It was Marcus Rashford. Lucky enough, he needed it, didn't he? And then to come on after second half, and then when he scored the goals, he could have easily sulked or been that. But there was so much passion there to say,
he owned it, didn't he? He completely owned it.
I think that's quite a key point, because I think the whole thing was dealt with in a very grown-up way. I can think of a lot of clubs where the managers would have lied, or maybe made it a bit more dramatic than it needed to be. The journalists afterwards were always going to ask questions about a player who's already scored before this match, double the amount of goals he'd scored last season. He's been fantastic for him, scored 3 times at the World Cup. He scored against Burnley the other day. So, had he not started, he didn't start, and the journalists were always going to ask the questions. But there's a way of being able to handle it, and as we've been saying off camera, Ten Hag is perfect for United because he has a very straightforward manner, and he doesn't beat about the bush if he wants to say something. But as you say, Rashford afterwards fessed up himself. So it's done now. We can all move on, and he can continue having what is an outstanding season for him.
The positive for Manchester United as well is that they've needed a manager like this, someone who has a blueprint across the board, because we've seen that this is how Erik ten Hag has dealt with 3 completely different players in different stages of their career. In the summer, in pre-season, with Garnacho, he handled him in a very similar fashion. Then Ronaldo, who is an absolute superstar, and now Marcus Rashford, and he's treated them all fairly similar in terms of the punishment for the crime that they've committed. So all positive signs for Manchester United, and it helps when Marcus Rashford is in the form he's in. And he's spoken, quite honestly, hasn't he, this season about being in a better mental state this season. Can you feel that? Can you see that when he's out on the pitch?
Absolutely. Absolutely you can. And I think that you can see the focus. People seem to forget that, from a young player that burst into the scene with the pressure that you have to carry with you from a Man United academy, then you get into the first team, then you score goals, and then you're playing continually. You know what I mean? And then under the Solskjaer, then he got the injury, and he continued to play. He wasn't rested. He's a young player. His form went, and then people were talking about, he's got his mind. His mind's not on the game because he's doing what he's doing with the off the field stuff, which is absolute rubbish and lazy. The fact is that we're talking about a young player that lost form in a time where his club's turbulence and everything was going wrong. He didn't have a rest till last summer. Last summer's the first rest he had. So now we're seeing a player who is ready to go, focused mind, playing a style of football that suits him. Finally.
And look at the difference it's made.
Absolutely.
You can certainly see he's more fitter this year, and the confidence there. Wright, you'll know about the confidence, especially with a striker, because he's seen when you're on the front foot. the ball's landing to him at the right place. So whereas before he was just a yard behind or two, or the run just wasn't there. And there's a player when you're on that pitch and you can see that in your striker. I've been there with strikers, and you're going,
it's just not happening.
He's just not at it. But
even that goal there, Sid, you see that goal, what we just saw? Even you see it just bounced up. You get the luck because you've got such a your confidence. You're going for it because you've got such a your confidence. You're going for it, and so you're getting that luck because you've got such a your confidence. You're going for it, and so you're getting that luck. What you go for it. When you're going for it.
The balance of the rest and the work that he's done in the off-season, because I read an article that he went to the Nike headquarters in Oregon in the off-season to work on his sprinting and his fitness, the bungee cords, that coming back, being fresh. Should have played in a few of them games where he was carrying the injury that he was doing, but he wanted to get out there and show his worth. So this year, all the boxes are being ticked. He's on fine form, and you can see he's every time he gets through on goal, he's going to at least minimum hit the target.
And I think he's symbolic of the handling of Man United's young players, because I think there are one or two other players who haven't been where they would want them to be. Sancho's one of them.
Yes.
And it isn't just the case that United are dropping these players and leaving them and maybe bring them back in a couple of months. They have specific programs that these players are following. They've got a specific method of being able to re-establish the confidence that they had before they arrived at the club. And I think just like we're seeing a return to the form he had, it was always you're right, it was always a nonsense to suggest that Rashford was finished, he was never going to be the same player. He's a young boy learning the game, he's 24 years of age, and with the right confidence, with the right structure, with the right team, because he's had to recalibrate that team to get the players who do still have something to offer to be able to do that, and get rid of some of the underachievers and some of the deadwood, just like at Manchester United. With all of those things coming together, you have conditions for the players to be able to do what they do best.
Yeah, five wins in a row in all competitions now for Manchester United, and that Marcus Rashford goal at Molineux on Saturday gave them the 3 points they needed in the Premier League to take them into the top four for the first time this season. The question is, can they stay there, Wrighty, with the squad they've got, or do they need a striker? Because Marcus Rashford has quite openly said he prefers playing on the left. Martial, if he gets injured, you'd assume Rashford would probably have to fill that hole down the centre. So do they need a striker, and who's out there?
Well, that's the thing. There's no one out there because that Modric is going to Arsenal. No, but the thing, Jules, you're right. They do need a striker, because whatever happens, even if Martial doesn't get injured, because they do need to have somebody that's going to fire the goals in for them. As much as we say about Ronaldo, he did score the goals for United, and that's what they need. They need to find those goals. Right? And Man United, a club of Man United stats, they have to be looking for another striker, because now that they've got there, you do feel like the way that they're playing with the 5 wins, they do look like they're somewhere else now. It seems like it's getting through. It's no coincidence that Rashford, Fernandes is, playing well. Eriksen playing well. Martial in the team doing his bit. There's players now who are all playing well because they understand what they're trying to do. And you look at Man United, they look a lot more structured and they look more stable in what they're doing.
Can I pick up on that? Because I think as far as the team are concerned, he's made tough decisions. Maguire not in the side, they're better for him not being in the side. They've got the protection of Casemiro and the leadership in midfield. That is so key. I think as far as the entire team is concerned, there's a basic work ethic this season that we haven't seen for a long, long time at Manchester United. And I think that is the basis for what they're doing right now, the consistency. I think they'll stay in the top 4 because they've got that discipline again, and that they haven't had for, I would say, several years.
I think that,
Who's the biggest challengers for the 4th spot in the Premier League then, Steve, in your opinion? Because we saw Tottenham drop out at the weekend. Chelsea are having an off-season, just 1 win in 7 Premier League matches now. Liverpool, they're in the top 6.
I believe Newcastle have put themselves in a real good position to be top 4. So if we're looking at the moment, we're looking at Arsenal, Man City, either of them to win the league.
Just say Arsenal.
United to stay in. A nervy right. I think Newcastle have got a great chance, because like we said before, Chelsea's, Spurs, none of them are pulling up trees. It's a season now where your Arsenal can win the league, Newcastle can get in the top 4. I think Fulham is 7th at the moment as well. I know it's early, we're not even halfway through a season, but
you look at the way you're right. You look at the way Chelsea are. You look at Tottenham. You have to say with Newcastle, they're going to have to go through a spell where they're going to have to win certain games. where, like I'm saying with Arsenal, you have to go there. And to stay in the top 4, you have to win them, Jules. Like, for instance, Newcastle, we come to Arsenal and everything, we need to win that game. Yeah. You know, because you look at Man United, I feel like Man United are going to be amongst it, and I think that Liverpool can put a run together of winning games.
Yeah, of course.
You cannot, at this stage, write Liverpool off. So you're hoping that Newcastle can do it just for their sake. But at the same time, if Newcastle didn't do it, I'm not trying to dumb it down for them, and they can get themselves in Europe with the way that everything's transforming at Newcastle, that would be the kind of progression that they want, because all of a sudden they get Champions League football, then bam, they're going to have to really ramp everything up. And I think if they go Europa League, they can do like what City done when they bought Jolien Lescott and Gareth Barry and those kind of players to go to the next level, Jules. So as much as I'd love it to be Newcastle, I feel that Liverpool and Man United have got that experience where they'll probably put a run together towards the end, what might blast them in there.